Homo erectus is one of the most important chapters in the story of human evolution, a species that represents both our deep past and the roots of what would become modern humanity, staging around 1 million years ago. Homo erectus marked a turning point in human history because they were among the first of our ancestors to combine physical and cognitive traits that pushed the boundaries of survival and exploration. Their origins and evolutionary significance extend beyond just one continent, for they were the first humans to leave Africa and spread into Asia and Europe, setting the stage for the global presence of humankind. By studying their beginnings, scientists are able to uncover how Homo erectus laid the foundation for later species, including Homo sapiens, and how their innovations shaped the very trajectory of human life. The origins of Homo erectus are generally traced to East Africa, a cradle of humanity where many earlier hominins such as Australopithecus and Homo habilis also lived. Fossil evidence suggests that Homo erectus evolved from an earlier form of the genus Homo, possibly Homo habilis or Homo rudolfensis. While their precise ancestor is still debated, what is clear is that Homo erectus represented a significant leap forward in terms of brain size, body structure, and behavior. Their appearance coincided with a period of climatic fluctuation in Africa, where open grasslands expanded and challenged hominins to adapt to new environments. It was in this context that Homo erectus evolved, equipped with the traits necessary to survive not just in forests but also in savannas, deserts, and eventually foreign lands far from Africa. One of the key evolutionary milestones of Homo erectus was their ability to migrate beyond their place of origin. Fossils discovered in places like Java, Indonesia, and Zhoukoudian near Beijing, China show that within a few 100,000 years of their emergence, Homo erectus had spread across vast distances. This movement was unprecedented, marking the first time in evolutionary history that humans had successfully expanded out of Africa and colonized distant continents. Their adaptability to different climates, from the tropical forests of Southeast Asia to the temperate regions of Eurasia, speaks volumes about their resilience and capacity to exploit new resources. This expansion also indicates a degree of social organization and cooperation, since long migrations and survival in varied environments would have required planning, communication, and shared effort. In evolutionary terms, Homo erectus represents a bridge between the more primitive hominins and the more advanced species that would follow. Their brain size averaged between 600 and 100 cubic centimeters, larger than that of earlier hominins but smaller than modern humans. This increase in brain size suggests enhanced cognitive abilities which likely contributed to their use of tools, their ability to control fire, and their survival strategies. Their skeletal structure was also more modern than that of their predecessors, with longer legs, shorter arms, and a more upright posture. Homo erectus was built for endurance walking and even running, an adaptation crucial for hunting and long-distance travel. These traits make them a pivotal figure in the story of human evolution, embodying the transition from primitive ape-like ancestors to beings more recognizably human. The evolutionary significance of Homo erectus is also seen in their longevity as a species. They survived for nearly 2 million years, far longer than Homo sapiens have so far existed. This remarkable endurance demonstrates that Homo erectus was one of the most successful human species in history. Their ability to persist through changing climates, shifting landscapes, and competition with other species shows that they had a flexible survival strategy. They were not confined to one ecological niche but thrived in a variety of habitats. This versatility is a hallmark of humanity, one that we inherited and expanded upon. Another aspect of their significance lies in the evolutionary experiments that seem to have taken place within their lineage. Fossil evidence suggests that Homo erectus populations in different regions may have developed distinct features, leading some scientists to propose that multiple subspecies existed. For example, Homo erectus fossils from Africa sometimes differ in shape and size from those in Asia. These variations highlight the evolutionary diversity within the species and the possibility that Homo erectus was experimenting, in an evolutionary sense, with different adaptations. In this way, they represent not just a single step in human evolution but a branching and testing ground for traits that would later define Homo sapiens. Their evolutionary story also forces us to reconsider what it means to be human. Homo erectus were not just passive participants in the evolutionary process, they were active agents who reshaped their environments and lifestyles in ways unprecedented for earlier hominins. Their migration out of Africa, for example, was not just a random movement but an expansion that required problem-solving, tool use, and perhaps even the beginnings of cultural practices. By spreading so widely, they paved the way for later humans to inhabit every corner of the globe. The very fact that humanity today is global can be traced back to the pioneering movements of Homo erectus. The origins of Homo erectus also highlight the importance of cooperation in human evolution. Surviving in unfamiliar environments would have required group effort, whether in hunting, gathering, building shelters, or protecting one another from predators. While we cannot know the exact nature of their social structures, the evidence of their wide migrations and long survival suggests that they had developed forms of cooperation that extended beyond the small, loosely organized groups of earlier hominins. This social cohesion, even in its early forms, may have been a precursor to the complex societies that humans later built. In the broader context of evolution, Homo erectus marks the moment when humanity truly became a global species. Their origins in Africa tie them to the cradle of human evolution, devastated, but their spread into Asia and Europe demonstrates the potential of the human lineage to adapt, innovate, and endure. They were neither the beginning nor the end of the story, but their role as a bridge between earlier and later humans is undeniable. Without Homo erectus, the evolutionary path to Homo sapiens might never have unfolded as it did. In conclusion, the origins and evolutionary significance of Homo erectus lie in their role as pioneers of human expansion, as innovators in survival, and as ancestors who carried forward traits that define us today. From their beginnings in Africa to their journeys across continents, Homo erectus embodied adaptability, resilience, and ingenuity. They stand as a reminder that humanity's story is not one of sudden leaps but of gradual, persistent steps forward, each generation building on the strengths of those who came before. Homo erectus, the ancient human, was one of the most critical of those steps, shaping not only the past but the very possibilities of what humans could become. Homo erectus, often described as one of the most successful and long-lived species in human evolution, displayed a fascinating set of physical features and adaptations that helped them survive across diverse environments for nearly 2 million years. Their body structure, brain size, and overall physiology mark a critical step between earlier hominins and later humans, including Homo sapiens. By examining their physical attributes and the ways they adapted to their environments, we gain a clear understanding of why they thrived for so long and why they are considered a cornerstone in the evolutionary story. One of the most defining features of Homo erectus was their modern, body proportions. Unlike earlier hominins, who were shorter and often had long arms and shorter legs more suited for climbing trees, Homo erectus had long legs and relatively shorter arms, similar to modern humans. This adaptation made them efficient walkers and even runners. Their fully upright posture and narrow hips meant they were built for endurance rather than speed. This ability to walk long distances was crucial, especially since Homo erectus was the first human species to migrate out of Africa into Asia and Europe. Covering such vast distances would not have been possible without the endurance-based physique that set them apart from their predecessors. Their skeletal structure shows further evidence of their physical adaptations. Fossil remains reveal strong, thick bones, suggesting they were robust and capable of handling the demands of a physically intense lifestyle. Their ribcage was barrel-shaped, allowing for greater lung capacity, and their pelvis was narrower compared to earlier hominins, which improved balance during long-distance walking. These features collectively suggest a body built for persistence hunting, a survival strategy where humans would chase prey over long distances until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. Such a strategy required stamina, endurance, and efficient cooling mechanisms, traits Homo erectus possessed and passed down through evolution. Another key feature was their increased brain size. While not as large as modern humans, the brain of Homo erectus ranged from about 600 to 1100 cubic centimeters, larger than Homo habilis and other earlier species. This expansion of brain capacity indicates improvements in cognitive abilities, including problem-solving, tool-making, and possibly even the beginnings of social complexity. However, their skulls also had distinctive features that set them apart from Homo sapiens. They had thick skull bones, a prominent brow ridge, and a relatively low, elongated brain case rather than the rounded skull of modern humans. Their jaws were also robust, with large teeth suited for chewing tough plant material and meat. These traits reflect the evolutionary balance between retaining some primitive features while developing new ones that enabled survival in changing environments. Their facial structure was another distinguishing feature. Homo erectus had a projecting face with a broad nose, which may have been an adaptation to hot climates. As a wider nasal passage helps humidify and cool air before it reaches the lungs. Their jaws and teeth also suggest dietary flexibility. While they were capable hunters, they likely ate a wide range of foods from meat to tubers, fruits, and seeds. Such dietary adaptability would have been essential during migrations when resources varied from one region to another. This ability to eat a diverse diet is one of the reasons Homo erectus could thrive in so many different habitats, from African savannas to Asian forests. Body size also shows remarkable adaptation. On average, Homo erectus males stood about 5 feet 6 inches tall, while females were slightly shorter. This was significantly taller than earlier hominins, making them physically more imposing and better suited to covering ground efficiently. Fossil evidence from places like Kenya suggests that some individuals may have been even taller, reaching nearly 6 feet, indicating variation within the species. Their height and strength would have given them advantages in both hunting and protection against predators. Their adaptations extended beyond skeletal and muscular features to physiological traits. One of the most significant adaptations was thermoregulation, the ability to manage body heat. Homo erectus is believed to have had a greater number of sweat glands and less body hair than earlier hominins, allowing them to cool themselves more effectively during long hunts or migrations in hot climates. This adaptation, combined with their endurance-based body, suggests that they were among the first humans capable of persistence hunting, a strategy still used by some modern hunter-gatherer groups. Such traits were revolutionary. enabling them to hunt larger prey and outcompete other animals in their environments. Their physical features also hint at the beginnings of more complex social behaviors. For example, fossils of Homo erectus show evidence of healed injuries and tooth loss, suggesting that individuals may have been cared for by others in their group. This indicates not just physical adaptation but also a social adaptation tied to their physical resilience. Living in groups would have required cooperation, protection, and shared responsibility, all of which were supported by their physical ability to survive and thrive in varied conditions. Another important aspect of their physical adaptability was their ability to cope with different climates. As they migrated from Africa into colder regions like Europe, they would have faced new challenges, including the need for warmth and shelter. While clothing evidence is not directly preserved, their body structure, combined with archaeological findings, suggests that they could create shelters and use fire, adaptations that extended their physical survival into harsher environments. Their body's durability combined with cultural practices gave them an edge in expanding their range farther than any hominin species before them. The variations among Homo erectus fossils found in different parts of the world also demonstrate their adaptability. In places like Java, fossils show slightly different features compared to those found in Africa, which may represent regional adaptations to local climates and diets. This diversity within the species illustrates their evolutionary flexibility and their ability to thrive under a wide range of environmental pressures. When we compare their features with earlier hominins, Homo erectus clearly stands out as more human, in both form and function. Earlier species were limited in mobility, brain size, and adaptability, while Homo erectus combined greater intelligence with a body built for endurance and versatility. At the same time, their differences from modern humans remind us that evolution is a gradual process. They were not yet capable of the symbolic thought and advanced culture that characterize Homo sapiens, but they laid the physical groundwork upon which later human development was built. In conclusion, the physical features and adaptations of Homo erectus illustrate why they were one of the most successful species in the human lineage. Their tall, strong bodies, endurance-based physiology, increased brain size, and dietary flexibility allowed them to thrive across continents and climates for nearly 2 million years. They were a perfect balance of strength, stamina, and adaptability, qualities that made them pioneers in the human story. By understanding their physical traits, we see how evolution shaped not just their survival but also paved the way for the emergence of modern humans. Their legacy reminds us that the human body itself is an adaptation born of countless generations of struggle, innovation, and resilience. One of the most defining aspects of Homo erectus was their relationship with technology, innovation, and early cultural practices. For the first time in human history, we see a species that not only used tools but refined them, passed on techniques, and began to shape their environment in ways that revealed increasing intelligence and social cooperation. Their connection to fire, their use of Acheulean hand axes, and their possible early forms of cultural expression show that Homo erectus was far more advanced than any species before them. These innovations were not just conveniences, they were survival strategies that allowed them to thrive for nearly 2 million years and spread across continents. The Acheulean hand axe is perhaps the most iconic symbol of Homo erectus. Earlier species such as Homo habilis had already created stone tools, but their technology was relatively simple, consisting of flakes chipped off rocks for cutting and scraping. Homo erectus took this a step further by creating bifacial tools, shaped on both sides to create sharp, symmetrical edges. These hand axes were multi-purpose tools used for cutting meat, breaking bones, scraping hides, digging roots, and even chopping wood. The design of these tools, with their teardrop or oval shape, suggests not only greater skill in flaking stone but also a mental blueprint, an understanding of symmetry and planning before execution. This ability to visualize a final product and then shape raw material to achieve it represents a leap in cognitive development. The widespread presence of Acheulean tools across Africa, Europe, and Asia indicates that these techniques were shared and passed down through generations. Such transmission of knowledge suggests teaching and learning within groups, pointing to early forms of cultural continuity. While we cannot know exactly how Homo erectus taught one another, the consistency of hand axe designs across vast distances shows that ideas and techniques were not random but communicated. This is one of the earliest indications of cultural tradition among humans. Equally significant was Homo erectus's use of fire. Evidence from sites such as Jokodian in China and Gesher Benat Yaakov in Israel suggests that Homo erectus not only encountered fire but learned to control it. Fire was a revolutionary tool for survival. It provided warmth in colder climates, protection from predators, and a new way to prepare food. Cooking meat and plants made them easier to chew and digest, unlocking more nutrients and supporting the growth of larger brains. In this way, the use of fire was not just a survival adaptation but may have directly influenced human evolution by fueling the development of greater intelligence. Fire also extended the day, creating time for social interaction after sunset. Sitting around a fire may have been one of the first communal activities, strengthening group bonds and possibly sparking the beginnings of storytelling and shared ritual. The use of tools and fire also reveals something about the social life of Homo erectus. Statal making, for instance, likely required cooperation, with skilled individuals teaching others and groups working together in hunting or food preparation. The presence of burned bones at archaeological sites suggests that meals may have been shared, indicating some level of social organization and communal living. These practices hint at the earliest stages of culture, patterns of behavior and shared practices passed from one generation to the next. While we cannot yet speak of art or symbolic thought in Homo erectus with certainty, these behaviors show the roots of what would later become culture as we know it. Another fascinating aspect of Homo erectus's cultural development is their hunting practices. Unlike earlier hominins who may have relied heavily on scavenging, Homo erectus appears to have been an active hunter. Their endurance-based body structure allowed them to pursue animals over long distances. Combined with stone tools and possibly coordinated group hunting strategies, this gave them access to larger and more nutritious prey. Hunting not only provided food but also required planning, cooperation, and communication. The act of coordinating a hunt reflects an early form of social complexity and problem-solving. The archaeological record also raises intriguing questions about whether Homo erectus had the beginnings of symbolic or ritual behavior. Some sites have yielded unusual arrangements of stones or bones, leading researchers to wonder if these were intentional or purely accidental. While there is no clear evidence that Homo erectus engaged in symbolic thinking on the level of Homo sapiens or Neanderthals, the possibility remains that they had the seeds of cultural behaviors that later blossomed in other species. Their long survival and success suggests that they may have had a level of social cohesion and cultural expression that gave them resilience across changing environments. One particularly striking example of early culture comes from discoveries in Indonesia, where shells attributed to Homo erectus show markings that some researchers interpret as engravings. If these were deliberate, they could represent the earliest known examples of abstract thought or art. While the evidence is still debated, it raises fascinating questions about whether Homo erectus had the cognitive ability to create meaning beyond survival. Even if such expressions were rare, they suggest that Homo erectus was experimenting with ideas that would later define humanity: creativity, symbolism, and identity. The control of fire also played a role in expanding Homo erectus's cultural world. With fire, they could move into colder regions and survive nights that would otherwise have been deadly. This ability to adapt to different climates was crucial for their migration out of Africa into Asia and Europe. Fire also changed their relationship with food, health, and even socialization. Cooked food was not only easier to digest but also safer, reducing the risk of disease. Gathering around a fire may have encouraged social bonds, giving rise to more complex group structures and perhaps even the earliest sparks of language development. While direct evidence of language in Homo erectus is lacking, their tool-making skills, cooperative hunts and knowledge transmission suggest that some form of advanced communication, whether gestures, vocalizations, or proto-language, was likely. The tools and cultural practices of Homo erectus also demonstrate their ability to adapt to different ecological conditions. In Africa, they relied heavily on hand axes and stone tools for hunting and processing large animals. In Asia, they modified their toolkits to suit local resources. This adaptability shows that Homo erectus was not tied to a single way of life but could innovate and change based on their environment. Such flexibility is one of the reasons they survived for nearly 2 million years, far longer than many other human species. In summary, the tools, fire, and early cultural practices of Homo erectus represent a turning point in human evolution. They were the first to demonstrate not only technological innovation, but also the beginnings of cultural continuity, passing knowledge from one generation to another. Their mastery of Acheulean hand axes, their control of fire, and their cooperative social behaviors laid the foundation for the development of later humans. These innovations transformed how they lived, what they ate, and how they interacted with one another, shaping a way of life that foreshadowed the complex societies of modern humans. Homo erectus was more than just a physical link in evolution. They were pioneers in the cultural sense, showing that humanity is not defined only by anatomy but by creativity, cooperation, and the ability to shape the environment. Their tools and fire were not just instruments of survival, but symbols of a new stage in human development. By exploring their cultural practices, we begin to see the outlines of what would later become civilization itself, making Homo erectus one of the most influential species in the human story. The legacy and extinction of Homo erectus is one of the most fascinating chapters in the human evolutionary story. Unlike many other early hominins who lived for relatively short spans of evolutionary time, Homo erectus persisted for nearly 2 million years, making them one of the most successful species in our lineage. Their survival across Africa, Asia, and Europe left a deep imprint on human history, shaping the path that would eventually lead to Homo sapiens. Yet, despite their longevity and adaptability, they too eventually disappeared. Exploring their legacy and extinction allows us to understand not only what they contributed to human evolution, but also what their story tells us about survival, adaptation, and the fragility of existence. One of the most enduring aspects of Homo erectus's legacy is their sheer endurance as a species. They appeared around 1.9 million years ago and survived until as recently as 10,000 years ago in some regions, such as Java, Indonesia. This means that for much of human history, Homo erectus shared the planet with multiple species of humans, including Homo heidelbergensis, Neanderthals, Denisovans, and eventually Homo sapiens. Stated, their ability to live for so long across such diverse environments shows that they had developed a flexible survival strategy, one that relied on physical adaptability, cognitive skills, and cultural innovations such as tools and fire. No other human species, not even modern Homo sapiens, has yet matched their longevity. And this alone cements Homo erectus as a cornerstone of human evolution. Their legacy also lies in the traits they passed down to later humans. Homo erectus was the first species to combine a larger brain, modern-like body proportions, and advanced tool use, creating a template for future evolution. Stated, the Acheulean hand axes they developed were used for over 1 million years, a testament to both their effectiveness and the transmission of cultural knowledge. Their ability to control fire marked a major shift in how humans interacted with their environment, opening the door to cooking, warmth, and protection. Stated, these innovations did not end with their extinction but carried forward, shaping the abilities and lifestyles of later species, including Homo sapiens. In many ways, modern humans still benefit from the survival strategies pioneered by Homo erectus. Their global expansion is another important part of their legacy. Homo erectus was the first human species to leave Africa and establish populations across Asia and Europe. This migration was a monumental event in human history, proving that humans could adapt to new climates, landscapes, and ecological challenges. Without this pioneering movement, later humans might not have had the foundation to spread so widely. Homo sapiens, who eventually colonized the globe, built upon the path first carved by Homo erectus. Their footprints across continents serve as evidence of humanity's deep-seated tendency to explore, migrate, and adapt. Yet despite all their strengths, Homo erectus eventually vanished. The reasons for their extinction remain debated among scientists, and likely there was no single cause but rather a combination of factors. Climate change is one possibility. As environments shifted dramatically during the Pleistocene, Homo erectus may have struggled to adapt to increasingly harsh and fluctuating conditions. Ice ages and changing ecosystems could have reduced their access to resources, forcing them into competition with other species. Competition with emerging humans is another likely explanation. As Homo heidelbergensis, Neanderthals, and eventually Homo sapiens appeared, Homo erectus may have been outcompeted in terms of technology, hunting strategies, and social organization. These later species developed more advanced tools, possibly better communication systems, and more complex social structures, which may have given them an edge in survival. In this sense, Homo erectus may have slowly been replaced by species that were better adapted to the changing world. Another factor could be the isolation of populations. Fossil evidence suggests that Homo erectus populations in places like Indonesia may have become cut off from other groups. This isolation would have limited genetic diversity and adaptability, making them more vulnerable to environmental pressures or disasters. Over time, such isolated groups may have dwindled until they disappeared entirely. Their extinction also raises questions about cultural limitations. While Homo erectus was advanced compared to earlier hominins, their culture and technology changed very slowly over time. The Acheulean hand axe, for example, remained largely unchanged for over 1 million years. This lack of rapid innovation may have worked against them when they faced new challenges or competition from more adaptable species. In contrast, Homo sapiens displayed greater flexibility in tool-making, language, and culture, which may have given them a decisive survival advantage. Still, even in extinction, the story of Homo erectus is not one of failure. Instead, it highlights the delicate balance of survival and evolution. They thrived for longer than any other human species and left behind a legacy of innovation, migration, and resilience that shaped the course of humanity. Their disappearance reminds us that survival is never guaranteed, even for species that seem supremely successful. In the grand narrative of life, extinction is part of the cycle, and Homo erectus' story is a reminder of both the possibilities and limits of human adaptation. Their legacy also continues within us. Genetic evidence suggests that while Homo erectus may not have directly interbred with Homo sapiens in the same way Neanderthals and Denisovans did, their evolutionary contributions were absorbed through the species that followed them. Traits such as endurance, running, advanced tool-making, and fire use originated with Homo erectus and were inherited by later humans. In this way, their legacy lives on not just in fossils but in the very fabric of who we are. Archaeological discoveries continue to reshape our understanding of their extinction and legacy. Every fossil, tool, or site adds pieces to the puzzle, by showing that Homo erectus was not a static or uniform species but one with variation, adaptability, and resilience. In some regions, they survived far longer than once thought, overlapping with early modern humans. This overlap raises fascinating questions. Did they interact, compete, or even exchange knowledge? While the answers remain uncertain, such possibilities highlight the profound impact Homo erectus may have had on shaping the trajectory of humanity. Ultimately, the extinction of Homo erectus is not the story of an evolutionary dead end, but of a species that carried humanity through one of its most critical phases. Stated, they bridged the gap between the primitive and the modern, laying the groundwork for the emergence of Homo sapiens. Their disappearance does not erase their importance. Rather, stated, it emphasizes the transient nature of life and the constant need for adaptation in a changing world. In conclusion, the legacy and extinction of Homo erectus are deeply intertwined. Their legacy is one of resilience, innovation, and expansion, qualities that made them one of the most successful humans in history. Their extinction, on the other hand, stated, is a reminder that even the strongest must eventually yield to change. Together, their story encapsulates the essence of evolution, survival, adaptation, and the inevitable passage of time. Stated, Homo erectus may no longer walk the earth, but their influence is everywhere, in our tools, our migrations, our adaptability, and even in the endurance of our species. Without them, the human story would be incomplete, for they were not just an ancient human. They were the ancestors who carried the torch of humanity for nearly 2 million years and passed it on to us. The story of Homo erectus teaches us that true success lies in adaptability, endurance, and innovation. Their long survival and eventual extinction remind us that no matter how strong or advanced a species becomes, survival depends on constant change and balance with the world.